Hello, and welcome to the Flip and Shift podcast. My name is Julie Walls. This podcast was based on the Flip and Shift's tagline, flipping your thinking to then shifting your behavior. The Flip and Shift podcast focuses on temperament to then how we evolve in our thinking to which influences our behaviors. We create belief systems throughout life, which affects the outcomes in our lives. Did you know that you can reprogram these belief systems to produce the outcomes you so desire? No matter what you're dealing with, there will always be a solution for you. So, this podcast should give you some hope. Yay! With each episode, we'll be chatting with leading experts in the field that have overcome struggles of their own. They found their way to overcome areas in their lives that needed focus and are now actually helping others to find their way. We all have a story to share. Let's learn from our past to change our future, and most importantly, inspire and help others along the way. If you are wanting to feel empowered, inspired, and are ready to make those changes in your life, you are subscribed to the right podcast. And hey, thank you so much for your support. Now, grab your favorite drink or snack, turn up the volume, kick back, and enjoy this chat. I'm so excited. We've got Jessica Compton from the Tree of Stars on tour. It is a foundation that promotes mental health awareness and addiction recovery. Jessica has an online IG live format that interviews musicians, artists, podcasters, and many folks that speak on mental health issues. She is a public speaker and she shares her recovery story as well as provides journaling workshops. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. She's got a couple things coming out here soon for peer support. She helps promote musical performances, art exhibits, and anything that helps support and promotes awareness around mental health. She's really inspiring. She does a whole lot. I don't know how her work ethic is crazy sick. We will be learning her story and how art and music helped her with healing. Hello, Jessica. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. I've been stalking you forever. You know that. And I'm very honored that you've been willing and able to come onto my platform. Thank you so much.
Such an honor to be here.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm originally from North Bay, Ontario, but I've been in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, probably for about 23 years now.
Wow. Okay. So where is that at as far as in Canada? Is it northeast, northwest, or central?
So born in the northern, and I'm now down in the southern area.
Oh, okay, cool. Just throwing that out there. We traveled before COVID hit all throughout Canada because we live about 30 miles south of Glacier. So we went up through Banff and all that, all that area and headed through all the different territories and camped. It was super cool. You guys live in an amazing country.
Yeah, Banff is really beautiful. I am actually heading out to Alberta this summer, so I'll have to dip into those areas that you visited for sure.
Oh, for sure. You're going to love it. You're going to love it. All right. So let's get into it. So tell me a little bit about your upbringing, kind of give a little insight to folks on, your upbringing and everything.
Yeah. So on WordPress, you can find a little bit of a blog there, and I call it the A blog. Everything I've been through. So abandoned, abducted, abused, addict, ADHD, and arrested 4 times. But to start off in the beginning, I was with my mom and dad. Then they divorced. My mom was getting into the alcohol and the drugs, different, men in the house. And one night, my sister and I were found under a bed because my mom went out partying, and we were about 4 or 5 years old. So CAS came and got us, put us in a foster care system. Then they found my dad. Dad ended up getting custody of us. So he moved us up north. He found a new wife. We lived out in the country. Well, my dad was a very busy worker. He was an electrician throughout the week, and weekends he was a DJ. So I was raised by his new wife, and I was also living on the reserve in an Indigenous community. So even though I was brought up as Christian, living in a different culture, just having a lot of freedom, but not enough TLC. I wasn't taken care of. I was, a lot of spankings. I got soap in the mouth, but I mean, my upbringing, I was disciplined, but in different ways. I had to stand in a corner for 4 hours until I told the truth. I also had behavioral issues because of the layers of trauma. So I was setting fires. I was running away at an early age. So that was kind of my upbringing. But again, going back to the A blog, I was abducted for a couple hours, taken out of my home, sexually assaulted. And then the man that did that had brought me back into the house. So I was very lucky and blessed that I was returned. But that type of assault also, and I'm trigger warning, just I was molested 4 times. I was raped once. So the sexual abuse and the mental abuse, it was all there, different cultures, different religion, just it was a big mess. And I didn't know what was going on. I was so young. So I was put into foster care again in a behavioral house. And even at that, I started, wetting to bed, running away, temper tantrums at school. I in grade 2, I started becoming a bully. That was my upbringing. And then I know there's some more questions that come up after about,
I could do a whole bunch of conversation just around what you said. Literally. I just wrote down several notes. Number 1, I'm assuming that you guys have some form of alcoholism generationally, right? Because your mom went to that. You said you divorced between 4 and 5 years old.
Yeah.
So the thing is that, divorce is very fascinating, and that age is kind of a pivotal starting to really get in that concrete thinking. So what you see is what it is, right? So in taking all of that, I can't imagine where your brain was at 4. You must have felt really lost. There's probably a lot of like, what about me? That little girl in the corner being unheard. Did you feel that way?
Absolutely. And I took that out on other people. When it came to, being in school, I purposely had temper tantrums with teachers so that they would, give me a hug. Are you okay? I would steal kids' lunches just because mine was, not so great. So just targeting individuals that were, well taken care of, and their parents love them. And I was like, that's not what I have. And I want to take that away from you because I want that. And, even if a kid came to school with a nice outfit on it and, there was a puddle nearby, I would, and I was spitting on kids. I was, scaring kids. I would just horrible things. Like I was out of control. I didn't know who I was, where I was supposed to be. This continued all the way up to age 21.
Yeah. Can I ask you? Okay. So, and I'm just going to throw that out there. I will even admittedly say this. I can't cry wolf I can't cry victim because I've been bullied, but I've also bullied. Right. Yeah. And I look back at some of those moments and I think, man, I was so pissed. Man, I felt so angry. I felt so insecure, and a lot of people, and there's that big bullying awareness out there, but we're not looking on that other end of it, of what the child's dealing with, who is bullying, right? And do you feel like there was an undertow of just, I'm pissed, I'm angry about my life?
Absolutely. And I think that, I took it out on, everyone and anyone that was around me, even when I got into the drugs and the alcohol and living on the streets and the crime, I used to break into my own family's houses. I used to, harass my grandmother to give me money for my next hit, So yeah, I lost all that support. I didn't have any support, or, my resources was being incarcerated 4 times. Every time I got arrested, I got sent away. But that was my wake up of recovery because, every time I got incarcerated, I got clean and I got healthy and I gained, I'd go in at 110 pounds and come out at 130. I had the doctors check me out, make sure I was okay. So yeah, I would have to thank the correctional system. I think it's because of them that I'm alive today.
You were focused on, and I'm sure, there's not that layer of like a mother would give, but there's a layer of like, I care for you. I want to get you better. I want to help you eat better, healthier, eat better. You hear about that as far as those folks that are in and then rather go back to jail. You read about that.
My last time that I was incarcerated, it was an adult. So I was adult, and that held me back. My last charge being 19, it held me back from, even so much to this day, I need a waiver to enter the United States. I have, pieces of paper that I have to go into the customs, and they have to, do all these immigration papers to make sure that, wow, I haven't reoffended. So I pay $1,000 every 5 years to enter the US.
God, no way.
So I'm
That's
still
crazy.
being consequenced for something I did like 20 years ago. So,
Yeah,
but there's always a lesson to be learned here. Yes, there's layers of trauma. Yes, there was therapy, and I've paid my time of doing the crime. But even the types of crimes that I did, I stole a car, I escaped of custody, I assaulted a police officer, I blew up some telephone booths. Like, this was me on outrage. Like, every time I was released from the correctional facility, it was like, here's a backpack. We hope the best for you, and make sure that you check in every Sunday. It was like,
that's crazy. Jessica, can I ask you, growing up, did you witness, and I hate to, and I'm going off cuff here, but, and please bear with me. I hope this isn't too sensitive for
yeah.
you. Did you witness abuse and that rage? Because sometimes we see that and we think, okay, well, that gets attention. Did you witness that from mom or dad or anybody in your home that was also kind of raging out?
Yeah, with my mom just being physically aggressive, just the individuals that she was in a relationship with, drinking, and yeah, when you did talk about also the generational piece, is that there are, people in my family that have, situations where they have suffered from alcoholism and, pieces of addiction. So I have witnessed that. And I think that, even my father, he was, I guess you could say, a high functioning alcoholic, high functioning drug user. He kept it clean slate of professionalism, but when the weekends came, like, he was, sometimes he was with 2 or 3 women in a weekend.
Yeah.
And I witnessed that. So I think that, when it comes to different types of abuse or narcissist, anything like that, definitely there's all of those pieces there.
Yeah, I want to go back a bit though, and I want to get your professional thoughts on this. I mean, there's 2 things now, and I don't know what your age, you're probably significantly younger than me, but back in the day, the bullying piece really wasn't a significant, people just did it, right? And there was really a consequence of, oh, you're going to go to the principal's office if it was caught, right? And now it's really on the forefront. It's out there. So my thought is, for those individuals like yourself, who would you consider the bully? What do you think needs to happen now, like in regards to bullying in the school and recognizing it from a trauma standpoint?
So just as much as I think it should be zero tolerance, I definitely think like a track record of data collection to say, okay, this individual is targeting these individuals. But then the other big factor is, we do a lot of things in the school, not to put the pressure on school or even just seeking a regular doctor's an appointment, but scanning to say, yes, your eyes are okay, your ears are fine, but how is your mental health? Has this individual, and I think we need to also look at, so I'm on a committee with Voices Against Bullying. They're a Facebook group, great resource. There's, bullying specialists that are on our committee. There's also a youth on our committee that, had suicide ideation because he was bullied. But so our committee on VAB has additional resources. But back to my professional or even personal answer for that is, can we change the name bully to an individual that's struggling with conflict or having to resolve those issues? And what is the consequence? And are we going to follow through with the plan? And where is that plan that child is seeking? Make it mandatory. When I was arrested for stealing the car, it was mandatory that I went to a recovery center. And I could not miss an appointment. So how about we put the onus on the parents to say, you know what, here's the parents, here's the school, let's work together. And then there's the other piece of cyberbullying, when do these apps become responsible to say, okay, you know what, you will be charged if right?
I love that you brought that up. Yes, because I feel now in the day and age of technology and everything else, it is so rampant. And on top of that, I do think it's interesting because it's going back to, you're still dealing with those consequences from years ago, right? And you're now starting to see people are getting the effects from bullying from, when not Facebook, but what's the other Facebook alternative, MySpace, when somebody was bullying on MySpace or something like that. Yeah, I think the consequence piece is really, it's fascinating. I think you brought up some really interesting points. I think it's amazing. Well, but today with all the cyberbullying happening.
I think when tables are turned too, one of the things that people could do is if you are being bullied, and I was bullied 2 years ago from a couple teachers, and what I did is I kept a journal and I documented every little thing that they were doing to me. And now that it's been some time has passed, and there's other situations where I end up going to the police station, and I made those reports. I checked in with my doctor and I made sure that I had all of this information to say, what, if something else were to happen for my mental health and my wellness, is that, yes, what, I did bring this up to the principal and it was taken care of. And I did go to the police station and it was taken care of. So, be kind.
Well, and it's fascinating though, too, Jessica, you've been on the bully side of it. And then you've also been on the bullying side. So you've seen that perspective. Now, I want to ask you, looking backwards at your life, to those folks that I don't want to say inflicted. I mean, that's kind of a strong word, but inflicted pain or, humiliation or whatever. Have you ever considered contacting those folks or kind of going through an emotional forgiveness factor piece? What's your thoughts on that?
So when it's funny that you talked about MySpace, because when Facebook came out, and I don't even know, I really was mean to a lot of people. Facebook came out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great opportunity for me to reach out to these individuals as best as I could remember, to apologize to them. And it was, some people blocked me. Some people were like, you don't even know how amazing this feels to know that it wasn't me and it was you. And I was like, I'm sorry, I took my shit out on you. Excuse my language, but
it's okay. Yeah.
And and even to this day, I still, when I post things about being that bully, I have individuals that say, hey, you weren't so nice to me either. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. But then let's tap in a little bit about the forgiveness for myself and for other people. Yes, I was put through, a lot of abuse and layers of trauma, but I have to forgive myself and I have to forgive other people, because that gives me that internal strength to help other people as well.
I love that. That's absolutely beautiful. That's gives me chills. I appreciate you saying that. I just want to share a common link here. I know in high school for me, and in people that know my story a bit, I dealt with trauma. I have PTSD. And I look back as I was going through the mental health process of recovery and working through my PTSD, I started seeing the links of self-worth from incidences that happened in my junior high timeframe and into high school. And I never really thought how it severely impacted my health. And then I look back at it and I think, okay, and maybe you dealt with this as well, but I remember looking back at it and I had to do a deep dive around it, because I was like, well, why would something in 11th grade or 10th grade affect me to this day? And then I look back at that time frame and I'd wake up every fucking day with a stomach ache to go to school, or I started getting severe migraines, or I was constantly going to the doctor during that time, and I never connected the dots. And my mom didn't either, God bless her heart, but she didn't connect the dots that it was what I was dealing with at school. Yeah. And did you deal with physical symptomology as well from bullying or being bullied?
Yeah, I think that, I had to label as a bully. So I had to hold that.
Yeah.
And then on the other aspect, being bullied, I think that, I did have, my attendance was an issue because I wasn't wanting to come to work, and, the anxiety, I'd get stomach aches because it's or even just taking a deep breath in 5 times before I opened the door of a school, that I was working at. So, and then going, okay, is this because I'm different in different ways and I'm not like other people, especially with my ADHD, sometimes I need, tasks told to me 3 or 4 times before I get it because I'm unfocused. So
yeah, it does. I think it manifests everybody differently, but I do think there, like you said, there needs to be more awareness around kids' mental states. If they're constantly going to the doctor, and I will say this, my children as well, I start trying to tap into the mental piece of what's going on with you. When they were in public school, what was coming up for you? Are you, were you feeling overwhelmed at lunch? That's why you couldn't eat your food. Now you have a stomach ache. Yeah. I mean, I got a little nervous around, my kids have a little bit of social anxiety and things like that coming up. And I think it's important for us as parents, and then also as school officials or doctors, to recognize the mental piece around it. And especially if there's bullying going on, I really think it really affects kids physically.
Well, and I think like with our school here in Canada, we have surveys, anonymous like surveys. So the students can fill out, where the bullying is happening.
Yeah.
And, and parents now have that advocacy piece to speak up and say, okay, you said that it was zero tolerance. So, and people are dying because of bullying all around the world. So it's definitely a crime and it needs to be taken seriously. I really, honestly, even if somebody's 5 years old or 6 years old, you need to stop or those behaviors and check out the mental part of it.
Absolute freaking lootly. Now, I want to transition a bit, and I really appreciate you touching point on the bullying piece. We could have a whole episode talking about bullying. I have a lot of questions for you.
Yeah.
But I want to talk a little bit about your personal struggles with addiction. Do you mind going in a little bit of detail about that?
Yeah. So the first time I, tapped into trying cigarettes, coffee, it was always surrounded in my household, and, alcohol was always around, and as I yielded around 12, 13, started drinking more, and then marijuana, and then, wanting a little bit like something a bit stronger. I was introduced to LSD, cocaine, mushrooms, hash, anything that would give me, a numbness, something that would black me out, something that would make me forget about any kind of hurt inside or any kind of trauma. And it wasn't, days where I ended up on the streets. I would even stay up for 3 days straight just so that I could get a buzz of not falling asleep. And, because if you're awake for 3 full days, like you're a mess. There was a group of us, and then we would end up sleeping for 3 days because we were up for 3 days. So not eating properly, just being really malnourished and just wanting to numb everything, It's
amazing that you say that because, I deal with a lot of codependency in my family. I also deal with clients that have some codependency issues, and especially with chemical codependency or emotional codependency. There is that numbness factor. So what I found with the numbness factor, and the English language is so vast, and what the meaning around numbness really is anger. If you unpeel the numbness, what's about it? A lot of people say, I just feel numb, or whenever I'm around this particular person, I just kind of go numb and I just sit there. Or the alcohol, when I'm around people and I'm feeling very anxious or whatever, it numbs me so I don't feel that way. And then if we dig deeper, there's some anger around it, judgment, right? Did you find that as well?
Yeah. And I think, I don't know if it was just back in the day, but every time I got arrested, it was like, here she goes again, and it wasn't the crime that I did. It was, me being influenced by drugs and alcohol and then doing the crime. So it was like, I kept saying this, the quote, I guess, or my speech of this would be like, it wasn't me, it was the drugs.
Yeah.
Right. Because if I was sober or clean, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't just hop into a car with, $200 worth of drugs on me in a car that I stole. I was like, that wasn't me. It was the drugs. Right. So I think by the 4th charge, that's why the courts had said she needs to go to rehab. So they gave me a choice. They actually said, do you want to do 3 months in adult or do you want to do 6 months in rehab? So it was like, I did the rehab.
You did? Wow.
I did the rehab, but that's not to say that it didn't close the doors. I ended up finishing high school and going to college, and then there was the drinking again, not so much of drugs, but there was a lot of drinking in college, and I still had the years of probation that I had to finish. It wasn't just, hey, you did your time. It was like, okay, well, now you have this many years of probation. So it's like I was always being watched and I had to be very careful. But I ended up going to school to be a jail guard. And
wow.
I know. So
That's amazing.
I graduated to be a jail guard, but even with the college, they said, you're not supposed to be in this program. And I said, well, you didn't do a clearance check, so that's not my problem. I already paid the money and here I am, so you're going to have to help me. So I had to advocate my way through. I succeeded. And yeah, I worked in, I guess this goes to other questions or whatnot, but I end up, staying clean, working 15 years in a group home at the same agency with 10 aggressive boys, 6 aggressive girls. And then,
real quick, can I ask you a question? I've got 2 questions actually, and I'm going to go back to my first question, but I want to focus on this. So when you became a jail guard, did you find that you were started having light bulb moments because you were witnessing it from a different vantage point, you were witnessing these kids, right? Because you were a juvenile jail guard, right?
I worked in like a group home where there was 10 kids, so it was kind of considered as like an open custody. So there was amazing moments where I helped these children through my own experience, not so much of the education, but even while going through the education to be a jail guard, it was like talking about case management. I knew the system. So when I was doing my tests, you know, when it came to exams, I was like, I didn't really have to study because I'm like, been there, done that. And then, you know, when there was psychology, even just like some of the studies, I was like, I know the Young Offenders Act, and I knew the system, right? So
to me, and then did it kind of start, and I want to say light bulb moments. So not only are you witnessing it from a different vantage point, were you clean at this point?
In college, I was drinking, smoking a bit of marijuana, but I wasn't touching anything that chemical, like, you know, cocaine or anything like that. I mean, my main focus, and there was a lot of, you know, there was a very good focus for me. I was controlling the, you know, yes, I partied a little bit with the alcohol, but I was more into the hard drugs, and not to say that even today I can have a glass of wine and I'll be fine. But, you know, cocaine, LSD, you know, there was moments where I thought I was going to die, you know, friends of mine sticking fingers down their throat because they thought I was going to overdose. So in college, there was moments, but then, you know, then this drug came around, ecstasy. So when I was in college, I did, you know, tap into doing some ecstasy. So I wasn't fully recovered. I wasn't ready to be clean, I guess you could say.
Right. So this is during the time when you were a jail guard, right? But you were starting to kind of evolve. Let me ask you this. This is my other question, because I know parents are tuning in and listening to you, and they've got kids that are starting to dabble, right, and go down that road. How much do you think it is to be around like-minded other kids that are doing that crap, right? Like, how much do you think that is also a part of it? So like-mindedness attracts like-mindedness.
Yeah, it's almost like if you're a yoga instructor, you're going to want to surround yourself with a bunch of yoga instructors and people that are like-minded. So I think when it's coming down to it, you know, if you're an individual suffering from trauma, but then again, not to say that just because I've experienced trauma, I don't have to do drugs or drinking, but I wanted that numbness. Now, if you have somebody else that has grown up in a nice, safe home, but, you know, they're into sports and they try it, you know, I mean, if they try it and they like it and they want more and more, then that path is, you know, sometimes not a choice.
Yeah, I get that. Now, I just want to go back to what you said. I always write notes down. So notice that I'm doing that. So when you said like-mindedness likes trauma, that's very, very, I'm trying to find a link here, but I noticed folks that I work with, and then myself, I was always leaning towards trauma-focused people, but they never had the solution, right? So we'd always kind of just commiserate together and talk about trauma. And I want to ask you how you kind of evolved away from that, from those types of people that were doing the drugs and things like that, because it never seemed to probably go anywhere, right? And they're doing the same thing. How did you then start transitioning over into the healing piece to this? And now I want to disclaim this, and you can state this as well. Addicts, chemical dependency, emotional codependency, folks, okay? You never are recovered, right? You're never like, it doesn't affect me anymore. You're always going to need to be in that awareness state. You're always going to be proactive. So Jessica and I are never like, oh, this doesn't affect me anymore. We always have to continue to be mindful of everything that we're doing, right? So how did you transition into that awareness state of, oh my gosh, I've got a problem. This isn't getting better. I'm hanging around with these people that are never going anywhere. What was the process there for you?
So I just, I'm going to have to go back to my past for a moment. There was a social worker friend of mine, because she was my maid of honor. She ended up being my best friend, my maid of honor.
Awesome.
So she closed my case. I know professionally that's not to happen, but this was years and years ago. She was like a mom to me. She took me in her house, you know, and I asked her, I was like, you know, can I have a drink with you? And she goes, no, because I don't want to base our friendship over alcohol. So those moments where, you know, even though I wasn't in therapy, she was like my best friend. And she told me moments like this. So every time I went to go to connect with somebody, I'm like, if they wanted to roll a joint or if they wanted to have a drink, I'm like, I don't want to always have this connection with, people and drinking. So I think for me, taking a step back, I started getting into fitness, started getting into wellness and what I was eating. Not to say the least, I guess like myself in recovery, like you said, we're always in recovery. So I think having our toolkit always handy, knowing our resources, but the other piece is, I think just being aware of any kind of triggers. And when I say triggers, it's like if somebody passes away, I want to drink. If somebody does this or this happens in my life, I want to drink. Why do I want to drink or do drugs? So it's being aware. But yes, I think that, I've had a couple relapses and I'm okay to this day. But I think, I went to Jamaica on my 40th birthday, drank for a week, came back and I still wanted to drink. And I'm like, but I'm supposed to be in recovery. Like I'm not. So I think it's moments where are you in control of your life and do you need to call somebody? What's your resources and what's your own personal strategy?
Yes.
Do you need to go reach out to somebody and forever have a sponsor, however you make your big plan, like it's a business plan, make your plan so that it's solid and for the rest of your life, because nobody's going to live this life sober or in recovery for you except for yourself. And that all equals to self-care.
100%. Now I got to ask you, this is going to go off on a tangent and we can always do another live on this because I think it's freaking fascinating. But Demi Lovato came out on, do you know who I'm talking about? She's a musician. And she's been in and out of recovery several times now. And she just did an interview about the idea that she chooses her form of sobriety. And so what she said was, which I thought was really fascinating, and I want to get your input on this, but she said that a lot of folks that are trying to go into recovery cold turkey, right? She says, I don't believe in that strategy. I've done that. I've been there, done that. And I'm misquoting her. So I'm kind of summarizing. But she said, I choose to have a drink or two and manage it. And I thought that's an interesting perspective on recovery because she said, I found cold turkey, I always failed. Do you think that her strategy of saying, okay, it's okay, because what my thinking is if you got to be mindful of triggers, but if you're not mindful of triggers, you could go on a binge. She is saying, well, if I'm in moderation, I'm a sober moderate. What's your thoughts on that?
So I think that everybody is individual. Everybody's a different human being. But I know that if somebody were to put ecstasy in front of me, it's going to be a weak moment for me. Even though it's been 20 years since I've touched it, I'd be like, oh, that looks really good. Like a yummy steak off the barbecue. Sorry if you're vegan, but you're missing out. Maybe you're not. But I just think that everybody's different. And, even when we talk about self-care, everybody's self-care looks different. You might take 2 baths in a day or take 5 walks, whereas somebody, it's just to get out of bed and brush your teeth and take a 5-minute walk and hug a tree. So I think when we're looking at recovery, everybody's different. So what works for you may not work for me. But yes, if there is recovery programs, and there are different recovery programs, and probably more being developed as we speak, even with, the world changing so quickly, right?
It's fascinating because I do think folks, and Dax Shepard talked a little bit about this on his podcast about 3 months ago, and he talked about how he relapsed again. And he said there's such a failure component to it. I mean, he said, and then I go through that deep, dark depression. And I was like, yeah, that would be difficult, especially since it's so tempting. I mean, I like candy. Like if you're going to put a bowl of Skittles in front of me, it will be really freaking hard for me to walk past it. Okay. But, and he said the same thing, he was addicted to pain medications. And he said, and I got into a bike accident. And then next thing you know, they're giving me pain medications, right? He said, instead of taking 1 or 2, I started taking 10. And then I had this failure component to it because I am an addict and I'm trying to, walk the walk. And then here I am bombing it. And then there's a failure piece to this. And he said, it took me to an even darker place. So this is my personal opinion on it. Like you said, everybody needs to customize it to themselves. Right. And I think that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, I smoked cigarettes from age 12 all the way up until about 4 years ago. And I'm going to take cigarettes because cigarettes was almost like my sense of security for everything I've been through. Cigarettes was the last thing that I let go of, and including one coffee a day. Coffee can be addicting. But so for me, if I know that I love coffee so much and I'm aware that I only can have one cup a day, for my health, or even like cigarettes, if I know that I don't smoke because I want to walk better or do better. So the question is, addict or not, trauma or not, do you want to help yourself? You have the choice to help yourself. If you are on the streets, living the life of shelter to shelter, the resources are there, and they're international right now because we're all viral. So the question is, do you want to help yourself? And are you ready? Right? So I think that, in recovery or not, trauma or not, that is the question. And I think the one thing that, you were talking about, and I kind of, maybe I missed my thought here for a second, but I relate it with cigarettes. But I think for me, when I go through Tim Hortons and the person in front of me and they're smoking and they're getting a coffee and the smoke goes into my Jeep, and I'm like, that's so disgusting. Why does this person have to smoke? But at the same time, I have the choice to roll up my window. And then now when I get to the drive-thru, I roll down my window. But I get annoyed by the cigarette smoke. But or do I look back 4 years ago when I was smoking cigarettes? I'm complaining that I can't walk up 3 flights of stairs because I'm out of breath. Well, I'm out of breath because I'm smoking. So do I have the choice to quit smoking and go cold turkey? I absolutely did. Are people different than other people and struggles? Absolutely. We're all just human as well, and we're not perfect. And we are going to make mistakes and struggle, and that's okay.
Yeah. I'm so impressed by your awareness. It's like this acute awareness in every aspect of your life. It's really impressive. You can see it on screen. Like how you just said that, it just tells me that you're in constant state of, I have a choice of my life, how I want to respond to my life in every aspect. You worked on that piece probably down to the root core, right?
And you know what? Again, this is with our life. So say, I guess the second lockdown when I was teaching online, I'm all about wellness and health and whatnot, but I was a little close to my fridge for my liking, gaining some weight. I call it the pandemic chubbies, and that's okay. But here we are today where you can, again, I have that choice. So yeah, I'm a little bit more mindful now. Not to say that life is a roller coaster, because life is a roller coaster. We are going to go up and we're going to go down, but what we do with that down is up to us. So if I'm in the middle of a pandemic and I'm close to my fridge, and it's what I choose to put in my fridge, it's what I choose to put in my body. But again, you know what? My heart goes out to so many people that they hit rock bottom and then they hit another rock bottom and then it's too late. Yeah. So there's resources out there.
I love that. I think you just gave a hope rope. Good job. Thank you. Now I got to ask you, so with when you started going into recovery, how did music, your photography, you do brilliant photography. I love your rough landscapes. Like they're really cool. So you and your girlfriend were just somewhere and you took some cool rusticy type, like kind of like dirty, right? That dirty look. I think that's cool. So did that help you with healing, and did it help kind of calm the inner Jessica?
Yeah, I think that, like I said, my dad was a DJ, so I was always surrounded by music. And, thank you, Spotify, for letting us stream the world. Just being surrounded by things like Bob Marley, or if it was, I heard stuff like Patsy Cline, all the way up to like Nirvana and Cyndi Lauper. So I've been surrounded by all of that stuff. But I think with music, when I quit smoking 4 years ago, I bought a guitar. I had no idea how to play guitar. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take my smoking money and I'm going to go buy a guitar. So now that I have a guitar that's worth $1,000, I can't afford to smoke this year. So it was like, I need to learn how to play guitar. So I just for 4 years, I've been, teaching myself. And so that's the music aspect. And then also just helping musicians locally, going to their events. And then, I helped with CD release parties. I also released an album. I had 13 different female musicians lend me a song. The album is on Spotify. All funds 100% go to the Youth Wellness Center down in Hamilton on James Street. So that I funded, I developed, I did the photography for that. And thank you to all the musicians that were a part of that and still to this day doing amazing things out in the community. And then with the photography, I've always loved taking pictures, but I think with my layers of trauma and all the dark stuff that I've been through, when I look at an abandoned house, when I look at, how can this be somebody's home? Well, inside that home that's abandoned, there's a story inside that home. I also went on a tour to a prison and I took pictures of jail cells. And so when I was arrested, right? So I utilized my photos as a part of, or a way to express my story and my emotions, right?
I love it. So, okay, the Tree of Stars, and it on Instagram, it's Tree of Stars on Tour. And I posted all of Jessica's information in the summary piece so you can connect with her. But I want you to talk to the folks and tell them all your services, because I know you've got a volunteer committee. I mean, you've got all sorts of things happening. So kind of speak to that so people know how to connect with you and get involved with you.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about my social media platforms really quickly about which one does what. So if you go onto YouTube, Tree of Stars, that shows my past events that I've had and my current public speaking. It's kind of just a timeline just to check into things that I have done and doing, like hugging events. And then if you go over to TikTok, I go live just for different generations to do a check-in, reach out to the younger generation, which is you and me, right? I'm
very young. I'm so young.
25. We're getting older. So with TikTok, I go live from Monday to Friday, 7:30 in the morning Eastern Standard Time, and then again at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just for 10 minutes to check in with people. So I go live over there. And on Instagram, I've been over there doing live interviews. I call them wellness interviews with musicians, paying them gigs to play 2 or 3 songs on my Instagram every Saturday and Sunday. I've interviewed over 300 individuals. And what I did is I created a Spotify playlist to have those musicians kind of just all on one playlist so that I can promote them there as well.
So this is musicians, right? Or are these the interviews that you do?
So I interview musicians, and then I also try to get them to play 2 or 3 songs with Wi-Fi. It doesn't give them the justice of what it could sound like. So that's why I have them on Spotify and Instagram. But every Saturday and Sunday on Instagram, I'm live. Right now, I'm booked all the way up till September. I've got 2 to 6 people every weekend if it's an artist and even a resource internationally. So that has to do with music or any kind of mental health or addiction. And I can do a shout out all to them, but probably don't have enough time. But and anybody that is watching, like, I can connect you with those places. Just send me a DM, and I'm pretty active on Instagram there. But currently I am working with different organizations so that I can hop up on their screen and do journal and music workshops. So I prompt people what to write about, and then we talk about what we wrote about. So I'll prompt topics like bullying, suicide, like let's dig deep and let's talk about it. And then, I want to open the can of worms and, I look at triggers as like, what? Our triggers are our strength. So basically I want to open everybody's can of worms and let's talk about it. Right. And be real and raw.
I love it. I mean, and okay, so here's my question for you. How do people, if they want to do the journal prompts, right, and connect with you, is the best way to do it if they want to get on the list? I'm sure there's a huge waiting list. Is it treeofstarsontour@gmail.com?
Yeah, anybody that wants to, even internationally, globally, want to like volunteer with me. I also have a volunteer committee that I'm putting together, but just wait on Instagram or Facebook or even email me, treeofstarsontour@gmail.com. But in the next week or so, I'm not doing a journal music workshop anywhere on my platforms. I'm doing it through other organizations. So going on their platforms and doing it. So, but everyone is welcome. So a lot of nonprofit places out there with a lot of people struggling, we're disengaged, we're not connected. So this being said is, it's optional to be on screen. It's optional to share. It's optional even if you don't want to write, or, there's some people with disabilities, you can even draw, or you can just sit and listen and be there because, we all need to be loved. So just to show up for yourself and self-care.
I'm insanely impressed. Now I have to ask you, and I'm going to ask you this on the live here.
Okay.
I want to collab with you on Clubhouse. Have you ever been on Clubhouse?
No.
But you would be such an amazing entity on Clubhouse. And I'm going to bother you until we do something, because I think he would be awesome. So I just want to throw that at you. But you have so many cool things. I can't get over it. And congratulations on all your sponsorships.
Yeah. And, with my sponsorships, every sponsorship is different. Some help me with purchasing merchandise so that I can give merchandise away. Some sponsorships have given me funds, but I more or less look for, and actually one of my sponsorships has given me, not that I need another job, but I deliver food on Sundays for a couple hours. And so, I work these extra jobs so that I can, give back to the community. I also deliver free produce. It takes me an hour to get there, but I drive back an hour, but I give bags of free produce to musicians that are locally not doing so well and that need that support of healthy foods.
I think you're like an angel. I think how you I don't know if there's like a analogy where you like devil turns into an angel kind of thing. I think that's you. I think you've earned your wings, to be honest. So
thank you.
I'm really impressed with you. But
honestly, I just feel like I know what it's like to just be through a bunch of shit and try to get out of it. And, to talk about, I was involved in a documentary and it's called Ending the Pain. And I talk about my suicide ideation. And that's another thing. It's being released in 21 days. It's the second documentary that I'm a part of. So yeah, I know what it's like to stand at a bridge and go, you know what, I've had enough. I'm done, and not take that jump and then take a step back and go, oh my gosh, what do I need to do with my life? Again, going back to what is the plan? Who can I reach out to? And if you don't have anybody, reach out to me or even yourself and we'll figure this out, right? There is a way.
I think you found your why, what you just said, because we both have very similar situations in regards to suicide. And I found my why because of the hope rope that day that was given to me. So that's why we're doing what we're doing. And I knew there was a reason why we were going to connect. Is like-mindedness. So I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I cannot wait to see the documentary. I cannot wait to tune into that. I can't wait to see all the things that you do. I'm buying some of those candles that you put out there.
Oh, yeah.
For your sponsorship. So,
well, I was going to say, so what I do is I try to promote small local businesses. And if they're wanting to sell a product for Tria Stars, they'll give back, like, say, 10 or 15% to Tria Stars. Sometimes it's only $2, but you know what? For me to promote them, and even with the candles, I bought 5 candles. I've already helped them, right? And now I'm like, so yeah, it just makes the world go round.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I know you're a very busy gal, and I really appreciate you taking the time with me today. You guys tune in to Jessica on her Facebook handle, which is Tree of Stars, right? Correct? And then her Instagram handle is @TreeOfStars on tour. And I posted all that information on my Instagram post. And if you want to message Jessica, you can message her at treeofstarsontour@gmail.com. It's been an insane honor to me and my pleasure today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and keep shining your light. I could feel your energy through my phone. I thought it was just the satellites over here, but any of the lives that I check in on your Instagram and stuff, I instantly get your positive energy. So
I'm in your face. I'm in your face. That's why. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have a fantastic day. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. You all have a fantastic day, and tune in tomorrow with Angie Brown at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time. Take care. Bye-bye. Wow, what a great episode, and a special thank you to our expert today. I hope today's episode inspired you, empowered you, and gave you some hope today. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for our next episode. Cheers, my friend. Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, or even share this podcast to someone who needs hope and inspiration. You can connect with me at www.flipinshift.com. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and even Clubhouse at Flip in Shift. Please join me next time for another expert chat or Survivor Talk.